Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Well, good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And let's start with honoring God with our bodies. So, God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help us to fix our thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable, so we will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect our eyes from sin's damage. God, we make a covenant with our eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over our mouths. God, set a guard over our mouths. Lord, keep watch over the doors of our lips. God, please have our hands serve generously. God, help us to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect our reproductive organs and help us to honor you, God, with purity. God, please help us to honor you with our bodies. And God, please protect our feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for our feet and a light on our path. So that just sets us up right for the morning. Good morning to everybody out there who's listening, who's joining us for the first time. Thank you so much. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It truly does help the channel to grow, and it does help me to stay on the air and giving you the latest in news. So right now we're going to check out X and our trending topics. So starting off with John Ossoff and just his position on the current, I want to say it's the Save America Act, but this is his take on it.
In Georgia, these attacks on voting rights are provoking a defiant backlash. They are motivating people to turn out to the polls in defiance of these attacks on the franchise. 61 years after President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, as if they'd been lying in wait since the ink from his pen dried. As soon as Section 2 of the VRA was eviscerated, they've leapt into action to try to remove Black elected officials, not by defeating them at the polls, but by manipulating maps to dilute minority power. But the fact that they're launching these attacks in the American South, the fact that they launched that ballot raid in Fulton County, in Congressman John Lewis' congressional district, is awakening in people a determination to vote like they have never voted before, to rebuke these abuses and defend voting rights. In Georgia, these attacks on voting rights are
Okay. And now, as you could see, just the different primaries coming in. Obviously, we're not in November. These are still primaries, right? In most instances. And so, okay, some of these instances, people are going head to head, right? Like Stephen Pratt in California against Karen Bass, because it's supposed to be nonpartisan. It becomes very partisan when people want to stay in power. And that's just my opinion. So let's move on to our next article. And this is the Reverend Jordan Wells. He says, "This is disgusting. What we're watching in California is election corruption in plain sight. NBC just admitted they need a flood of ballots coming in the wee hours of the morning to lift both Dems above Steve Hilton, sorry. And Steve Hilton is running for governor. Now, while Florida and Texas had clear results on election night, California drags it out with mysteriously late night ballot dumps. This isn't democracy. This is how a corrupt one party state cheats to stay in power. Enough. If Republicans like John Thune actually fought back and demanded real election integrity reforms, paper ballots, same day counting, voter ID, no more hidden mail ins, we could stop this. The Californians deserve better. Steve Hilton is fighting for real change. Sheriff, you're tired of the games. Well, the other thing that we're not talking about is, remember, they announced that one of the ballot drop-offs in California, apparently some of those ballots were damaged and burned. The interesting thing is, all of the camera footage around that particular ballot box, there was no damage to the exterior of the ballot box. So did somebody drop a match inside of it to burn the ballots up inside of there? Was it all the ballots? Because it says some, not all of them. So what are you talking about? Yeah. And then they are still counting. Oh, we still have to count all these ballots still coming in. Well, because the ballots had to be postmarked by yesterday. So that means they're still not done counting ballots. They may not be done counting ballots for another week. Because remember, those ballots have to get into the polling places where they count the ballots. So they don't have election day. They have election month, year. They don't care in California. And the mayor, when she was in a debate with Pratt, which she did not want to do another debate, she refused. He was like, let's debate again. She was like, oh, absolutely not. No, because it made her look crazy. She and the incumbent councilwoman, they were both okay with people who are not legally lawful naturalized citizens. Okay, they just said if they were legally present, they should be able to vote. They're not citizens of the country. If you're not naturalized, if you're not naturally born, you can't vote. That's it. It's real simple. There's no complications. It's really simple. But she's like, well, if they're here, they should be able to vote. No, if I'm living in France and I am not a citizen of the country, I can't vote in their elections. It's real simple. It's real easy. So let's check this out.
We do have some of that, as we said, some of that early vote is now in Los Angeles. This looks like it did with that vote by mail. It doesn't look like that gap between Becerra and Steyer has changed much here. Again, this is where Becerra represented. So there'd have to be either some change with that polling place vote, or it's just going to have to be such a flood of Democratic ballots coming in after, being tabulated after election night or into the wee hours this morning that would just lift both Democrats over Hilton. That's increasing what it needs to be for Steyer. We do have.
Yeah. There just has to be a flood of votes. What if the flood of votes are Republican? I'm just saying. And not Democrat. What if people didn't vote the way you thought they were going to vote? I mean, I'm just saying. Now, the last one I wanted to get to were the results. Now, this is the results of the way they stood like 5 hours ago. So this is a post done by Wall Street Apes. It said the election has just been called for Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. She is advancing to the general election without a single ounce of support or any positive comments on social media platforms. She takes the win. California elections are so obviously rigged. It's insulting. I know. I'm like, she raised less than $400,000. She's the incumbent. She's the incumbent. She raised less than $500,000. Spencer Pratt raised over $2 million. But she's going to the general election. That's interesting. But Spencer Pratt is too. That's who she'll be going up against. And I want to just put something out there. I know Spencer Pratt, he's a Republican. He's running, more independently than he is around party lines, which is how they're supposed to run, because they're supposed to represent the city as a nonpartisan individual. I just want to let him know, you've got the support of the Redemption Party. I am the founder of the party. You got our support, sir. So if this comes down to it and they try to kick you off the ballot or whatever, if you need Redemption Party members to write you in, to get you elected, let's go. Because see, they forget about that part, that we can all vote, even if it's a write-in. And that is very legal in California. So this isn't over, is all I'm saying. So Spencer, hey, if you're up for it, let's go. Let's have that conversation. So again, that's where it lies right now. The last I checked, I want to say Stephen Hinton, he was still pretty much in the running. I think he's going to be one of the top two. But very interesting. She's advancing to the general election. That's great. But Spencer Pratt is in second place. So he's advancing too. So he's not the only advancing. And for somebody who's not a politician to just go in and get it done, this is what needs to happen all over the country. And it's happening all over the country. And it is, I'm telling you, the establishment is crashing out because they don't understand. They're like, wait a minute, they're supposed to vote this way. They're supposed to do this. Yeah. Yeah. The oppressed are waking up. And that's what you see. And good morning, Spud McKenzie. Thank you so much for joining us. And amen to the prayer that was said earlier. Again, thank you so much for joining me here. So now we're going to get to a video. And what I found interesting about this video, it's about DHS, but there's a few other things that they mention in the video.
After weeks of infighting, a Senate standoff over immigration funding may finally be ending, with the controversial anti-weaponization fund officially off the table. GOP leaders see a path to advance billions in new funding for ICE, Border Patrol, and immigration enforcement.
The shift comes as Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin faced senators in a fiery hearing on Capitol Hill today with one simple message for Democrats: stop the political games and fund the damn agencies responsible for securing this fine nation.
Your reckless tone is getting people hurt, and it's got to stop. The fact that CBP and ICE hasn't been funded now for a historical amount of time is absolutely appalling. It should never happen, but yet we're playing political games. If your party is for open borders and an amnesty, then be honest. Because if ICE can't do their job, then who's supposed to be getting the illegals out?
Joining us now from Senate Homeland Security, Finance, and Budget Committees, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, great to see you tonight. If I was Secretary Mullin, I'd be fired up too. I mean, it's ridiculous that you can't get CBP and ICE funded. Sounds like the anti-weaponization fund is off the table. Does that clear the way to get this done now, Senator?
Well, first of all, I completely agree with Secretary Mullen. It's appalling that CBP and ICE is not funded yet. Where I disagree with him is it's not Democrats playing political games. They are deadly serious about wanting to defund ICE and CBP. They open the borders. They create this enormous mess, bring in criminals that are victimizing American citizens, and then they sabotage our efforts to clean it up. So I hope we're past the impasse now. By the way, I'm fully supportive of the Judgment Fund. It's been in existence since 1957. Presidents from both parties use it. Oftentimes, government abuses its citizens, sometimes on a partisan basis. So sometimes the relief could be viewed as partisan, but it's not. I think.
Now, did you hear what he said? He said sometimes the government abuses its citizens on a bipartisan basis. Huh? Yeah, he said that. He said that, and it's interesting. The reason, and I'm just going to stop it right there. I'll leave the clip so you hear the rest of what he has to say. But he said that. So I wanted to give us a little bit of a background on the Judgment Fund when it was passed, its purpose, right? Because a lot of people don't know about the Judgment Fund. Now, I've known about it for a couple of years. So just to give a little background on the Judgment Fund. It was actually created in Congress in 1956, codified in 31 USC Code, Title 31 USC Code, Section 1304. It pays certain final court judgments and Department of Justice approved settlements against the U.S. government when no other specific appropriation covers them. So in essence, it's kind of a last resort, but it is still in place so that people can have redress against the government when there are harms that are caused, right? Now, its purpose, it was created in 1956 under Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay, and the fund was established to streamline payments and reduce its own workload. Before 1956, Congress often had to pass individual appropriations bills for judgments, which caused delays, extra interest costs, and inefficiency. The fund was initially capped at $100,000 per claim and applied mainly to smaller judgment from courts like the Court of Federal Claims or district courts. Okay. Now, in 1977, the cap was removed. Shocker, right? And expanded access. So for more federal tort claims and accident cases, this happened under Democratic President Jimmy Carter, a Democrat-controlled Congress also, right? This change made fund uncapped, right? Allowing much larger payments without new congressional approval for each one. Now, critics, including some conservatives in recent years, argue this created potential for executive overreach or large-scale settlements without sufficient oversight. Absolutely, because they can be like, hey, do what you want to do. Yeah. Now, historical Republican support overall. So strong historical support for the concept. Republicans backed the original 1956 creation as a practical reform to limit government waste, right? Delays in interest and free up Congress for bigger issues. It aligned with conservative principles or efficient administration. Bipartisan use, both Republican and Democratic administrations have used the fund extensively for decades. Okay, Reagan, Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden oversight hearings, such as the 114th Congress, noted that presidents from both parties have directed payments from it, and they have. Now, recent Republican skepticism. Many Republicans have criticized large or novel uses of the fund, especially settlement funds or mass compensation programs. Examples include Obama-era settlements in Keep Siegel farmer claims, the recent 2026 Trump DOJ anti-weaponization fund, which is $1.8 billion from the Judgment Fund, which faced significant pushback from GOP senators and lawmakers concerned about precedent potential payouts to January 6 participants and bypassing congressional power of the purse. But you already put this in place in a bipartisan manner in the 70s. What are we talking about? Now you're mad. Now you're mad because it's working against you. See, it's one of those things that was like it was put in place to be efficient, to do a good thing. And then people were like, ooh, but what we could do with this. Yeah, those chickens always come home to roost, right? They really, really do. Now, I took a look at the judgment fund. So it does exist. I just want people to know, like, this does exist. It's here. And if you basically Google judgment fund, you will come up with the Bureau of Fiscal Service. Now, we're going to get to this in just a second. I wanted to look at Keep Siegel because somebody actually sent me a link. Coach TP, shout out. Thank you so much for sending me this. This was actually a little bit of the catalyst for my show. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us. Now, the Justice Department, this goes to announces anti-weaponization fund. This is the fund that Donald Trump has put in place and regarding the people from January 6th to have redress against the federal government, right? The plaintiffs in the case, President Donald Trump, Eric Trump organization, filed suits against the Treasury in Southern District of Florida. Following the leak of their tax returns per the settlement, plaintiffs received formal apology, but no monetary payment. They have agreed in exchange for creation of this fund to drop their pending lawsuit with prejudice and also withdraw to administrative claims, including for damages resulting from the unlawful raid of Mar-a-Lago and the Russian hoax. So that's where the money technically came from. Okay. Now, the fund will have power to issue formal apologies and monetary relief owed to claimants. Submission of a claim is voluntary. There are no partisan requirements to file a claim. Any money left when the fund ceases operations will revert to the federal government. The fund will receive $1.776 billion, 1776. I saw what you did there. And will come from the judgment fund with a perpetual appropriation allowing DOJ to settle and pay cases. On a quarterly basis, the fund shall send a report to the Attorney General outlining who has received relief and what form of relief was awarded. Now, in Keep Siegel, hundreds of millions of dollars remaining in the fund were distributed to nonprofits and NGOs that never made claims. Now, that's interesting. They were able just to take the money and give it to people who never made a claim. Interesting. Right? Now, the Obama DOJ settled by putting $680 million from the judgment fund into a bank account for single claims administrator to dole out. So they didn't even have to go through the judgment fund to get the money at that point. In Keep Siegel, the remaining money, which ended up being over $300 million, was distributed to entities that had not even submitted claims. Very interesting, right? So I looked it up in Grok because I was like, what is Keep Siegel and what are we doing? So I wanted some background. So Keep Siegel versus Vilsack. It was filed in 1999 with a class action lawsuit brought by Native American farmers and ranchers, right? Led plaintiffs Maryland, George, and Keep Siegel, alleging systemic discrimination by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They claimed the USDA denied them equal access to farm loans, loan servicing, and other agricultural programs from roughly 1981 to 1999, while approving similar requests from non-native, often white applicants. So they were able to do this pretty much based on direct harms to their ethnic group because they were saying, you're not giving us the same access and the access should be equal. Now understand, Native Americans, they are not United States citizens. It's a weird thing. It's a treaty thing. We'll get into it later, but let's just establish that for conversation. Okay, so in 2010 to 2011, under the Obama administration, the government reached a settlement, 760 million, with 680 million from the Treasury Judgment Fund for compensation. Successful claimants could get up to 50,000 track A or up to 250,000 track B with more proof, plus debt relief and tax relief. The claims ran in 2011. Thousands applied, but many eligible people reportedly didn't file due to distrust of the government and lack of records. So they didn't have the records to go in and show, like, hey, this really happened to us, right? And sometimes people just don't keep those track of documents. They don't. And this wasn't really necessarily a class action lawsuit in that respect. So let's continue. So about 380 million remained unclaimed after payouts. In 2016, a court-approved modification to settlement distributed the leftover funds to Cypress to indirectly benefit the class, right? So 38 million was fast-tracked to dozens of nonprofits via the Native American Agricultural Fast-Tracked Fund, NAA, FTF, and 265 to 266 million roughly to create the Native American Agricultural Fund, in AAF, a trust that supports native farming ranching programs, business assistance, education, technical support, advocacy of 20 years. So they're able to still tap into the funds, but it's in a way that it's protected, right? So that's what happened for them. Now, this is the case referenced by the Justice Department, because that's what I showed you, just the DOJ website on the Anti-Weaponization Fund. They do cite this particular case. Now, entities that receive money from Keep Siegel Judgment Fund, of the 680 million initially went to individual class members, successful claimants, and administrative cost. Very interesting, right? Again, the remaining 380 million went to organizations serving Native American farmers and ranchers, not direct government agencies, but nonprofits, tribal entities, and related groups. So your NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations. Examples include the Native American Agricultural Fund, that awards grants for agricultural development. Various nonprofits via the 38 million fast track grants. Organizations like First Nations Development Institute, tribal colleges, community developed financial institutions, CDFIs, sustainable agricultural groups, and advocacy entities focused on native producers in places like Arizona, North Dakota, etc. Now, for context, the Anti-Weaponization Fund announcement in 2026 cites Keep Siegel as precedent for creating a special fund from the Judgment Fund to address claims of government weaponization. Okay, so it's very specific, right? Now, critics have noted differences. Keep Siegel involved long-running litigation, judicial oversight, and a defined class with specific discrimination claims, while the new fund is larger, 1.776 billion, again, 1776, and structured differently. Now, I asked a larger question, because I'm always asking this large question. I say, could there be claims for descendants of slavery where descendants were harmed indirectly due to their specific policies and laws put in place by local, state, and federal governments to cause economic, educational, and civil harms? These harms would include, but not limited to, redlining, Jim Crow, bank loans, extension of credit, and the 1994 crime bill. Also to include Senate Bill 9 under the 39th Congress was read and not passed, which would have protected emancipated slaves from these harms. So yes, claims along these lines have been attempted and discussed extensively, but they face very significant legal barriers in U.S. courts. They are more viable, though still challenging, as a political legislative matter. Okay, so I wanted to get that question out of the way, because I know everybody's like looking at this weapons. Could this be? Could this be? This is this is kind of like letting you know. Okay, it still comes back to the legislation. If we're talking about reparations or any type of repair for a grievance against the federal government. But as I continued on, so the key legal barriers to court claims for descendants is sovereign immunity, statute of limitations, standing, right? Causation of speculativeness, political questions of doctrine, and noted failed cases. Cato versus the United States in 1985 sought damages for slavery legacy, including cultural loss and ongoing immigration. It was dismissed on immunity limitations and standing. And regarding African American slave descendants, litigation in 2000s targeted corporations for profiting from slavery, dismissed on similar grounds, plus lack of viable legal claims. Earlier attempts, Johnson versus Mikado in 1915, also failed. So no major court wins exist for broad descendant reparations from the federal government for slavery era or immediate post-slavery harms. Now, comparison to Keep Siegel and similar wins, Keep Siegel and Pigford, and we'll get into that, succeeded because they involved living plaintiffs alleging specific recent discrimination, right? 1980 1990s, and in USDA loan programs, evidence of unequal treatment compared to white applicants, statutory basis, judicial oversight, and eventual congressional funding settlements. These are not analogous to multi-generational claims from slavery, Jim Crow, or redlining. The latter lack the direct provable class-wide recent harms and statutory hooks. So with specific policies that I mentioned, like redlining, Jim Crow, credit discrimination, these are well documented. HOLOC maps, FHA policies, state segregated laws. They contributed to wealth gaps. However, many effects fall under statutes of limitations today, and proving specific government liability for descendants' harms is tough. Some narrow modern discrimination suits have succeeded under the Fair Housing Act or ECOA, but not as mass historical reparations. The 1994 crime bill is especially difficult. It was passed by a Democratic Congress with support from many Black lawmakers. Yeah, that happened, right? Amid high crime rates, while critics link it to mass incarceration, disparities, causation, and hotly debated, the crime fell sharply from the 1990s to the 2000s. Courts treat legislative policy choices as justiceable in this context. And the only reason I brought up the crime bill is because it targeted a specific ethnic and demographics of individuals. It didn't say, okay, all drug dealers, no matter their race, anybody, we're going to, clean up our streets. They specifically targeted Black Americans, calling them super predators. This happened. You can go back and look. Hillary Clinton said it. Joe Biden said it. Clinton said it. And I'm sure we can find some clips of, Maxine Waters, who also supported it, and Jim Clyburn, who also supported this bill. They did. I'm just saying, they did. Now, realistic path forward, Congress could pass a reparations bill. H.R. 40 proposes studying it. Now, precedents include the Japanese American internment camps, with some tribal settlements, targeted modern claims, lawsuits for ongoing specific discrimination, proven recent redlining by banks, or discriminatory policies have better odds under current civil rights laws. Now, Cypress or trust models like leftover Keep Siegel funds going to a native agricultural fund, any large settlement could fund community programs rather than individual payouts. So in short, broad descendant claims for these historical policies are legally uphill in courts due to the foundational doctrines designed to limit government exposure for descendant events. They are far more plausible through congressional as a policy choice, acknowledging historical harms similar to those redress efforts. Success would depend on evidence, political consciousness, and design. So again, it's going to be a legislative thing. So I asked about Pigford because I was like, what is this? Now, Pickford refers to a major class action lawsuit filed against the U.S. Department of Agriculture, alleging systemic racial discrimination against Black farmers in farm loan and programs and benefits. It is one of the largest civil rights settlements in U.S. history. I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. It was filed in 1997, right? Led by Timothy Pickford, a Black farmer from North Carolina, and others. The suit claimed that from 1981 to 1996, the USA discriminated against African American farmers by denying and delaying loan applications and program benefits, failing to properly investigate or resolve discrimination complaints, treating similarly situated white farmers more favorably. Very interesting that the Office of Civil Rights didn't show up because they're in place. The Office of Civil Rights existed since 1965 to specifically address things like this. Why did they have to have a class action lawsuit to get heard? Where was the office? Where was the Congressional Black Caucus to help? I'm just saying. Just saying. So in 1999, Judge Friedman approved a consent decree settling the case. It created a claims process with 2 tracks for eligible members. I'm just trying to go through this fast. So track A, 50,000, track B, 250,000. So very similar to what happened with the Native Americans, right? There were over 22,000 eligible claimants. That's a lot. And 15,000, a little over 15,000 approved under track A, and 104 were successful under track B. The total cost was $1.6 billion. Okay. Now, there was a Pickford too. Now, in 2008, Farm Bill allowed late filers who submitted requests in 1999, 2008 to seek review. In 2010, the Obama administration reached a $1.25 billion settlement agreement for these claims. Congress appropriated the funds late 2010. Claims process ran from 2011 to 2012, roughly 17,000, 19,000 additional successful claims were expected, with similar 50,000 in relief structure. So these things did occur, did happen. Now, I wanted to, take a quick look back here. So this is the judgment fund. So anybody can go in and look at it. And these are their bi-weekly reports. So I had to just skip on through. And I just wanted to show you what one of the reports looks like. So you can download it and download Excel. If you don't have Excel, what you can do is you can download the link. And then if you have a Google Drive, you can drop that link into your Google Drive, and then it will save it as an Excel file. Then that way you can open it in Google Docs. But let's just look at some of these payouts. Like here's alcohol, tobacco, and fire. And then they do redact people's names for privacy. Here is the name of the council that they used, and they were actually paid out $37,500. Okay, for their claim. As you can see, some of these are $150,000, $250,000, and this one was paid out by the Department of Justice. Let's just go back this way. And this was for the Bureau of Prisons. So I'm not sure if this was somebody under January 6th or, how that happened, but that was under the Bureau of Prisons. There's the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There's the Coast Guard, the Center of Disease Control, CDC. Okay, they had to pay out some things. Okay, let's see, was Publix a claimant? Wow, Publix was a claimant. And Myers and Albertsons? What y'all get money for? All under Anal Golden Gregory LLP, Department of Justice. They didn't get any money, but somebody got $7 million. Right here, who is that? Albertsons. So apparently they were able to sue for $7 million. Now, what may have happened is they may have collectively put the money here. I'm not sure, to share amongst the other ones, but it don't look like it. It looks like Arnold, they got the money for Albertsons, and everybody else is gonna have to get theirs off the glass, like Myers and Publix. It's like, you're not gonna get this money. 17 million again was paid out to Albertsons from the DOJ. So I'm not sure what that case referred to. I'd have to look at and they sued the CDC successfully and got $17 million. Yeah, so that's what this judgment fund is doing in practice, right? But I definitely wanted to share that with you guys and just bring you up to speed on what's okay. That was just me. Just what's been happening, right? So again, you can get there by just Googling Judgment Fund, and it should bring you to Bureau of Fiscal Service. That's what you want to look for. And you can look through these weekly reports. This is public information. So what I showed you was actually a download from last month, from January. And they're kind of in retrospect. So they have to wait closer to the 15th of June before you'll really see a post for the 16th through the 31st of May. Okay. So thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. I hope I gave you guys a little bit of insight. And Spud McKenzie says, sounds like they're giving out boots with straps again for everyone but us. I know, right? But here's the thing. Now that we know that it's here, again, that's why I posed the question. I was like, so can people or dissent? And it's not saying that we can't. It's saying that the path needs to be legislation. That's it. The path needs to be legislation. So very similarly to Native Americans, Japanese internment, they have perpetual funding. It's not a one-time payout. But here's the thing, the way the weaponization fund is worded, and I just want people to check this out. The way it's worded, it's not isolated to people who suffered any harm in regards to the federal government. So that means anybody can actually file a claim. So I would, really look at your family history. Just look at what's happened to you recently because you are still here living and active. And if you have been harmed in any way by the government because the government has been weaponized against you, you have the right to file that claim. So that will do it for us for today on Unfiltered Vision News for Women in Wellness Wednesday. We will be back tomorrow for Mighty Men Thursday. Again, it's going to be open mic. So you guys got to, send me your requests so you can be here on the show so we can really chat it up and get a lot of these different topics talked about. So thanks again for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And we will see you we'll see you tomorrow. That's a good thing, right? So remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.